Pakistan is reeling from the effects of persistent flooding. Emergency workers are racing to rescue thousands who are still stranded in Pakistan's worst floods in decades.
In August this year, Pakistan was inundated with its worst flood in living memory.
और हमारी जो एक नहीं तकरीबन पूरे गांव की फैमिली है ना वहाँ शिफ्ट हो गई है, वो रोड पे बैठी हुई है.
Months on, and much of Pakistan remains underwater.
क्योंकि लोग सड़कों पर बैठे हुए हैं, जिनके पास कोई छत का साया नहीं है, हमने से ये टेंट बनवा लिए.
The rains have ceased, but a second crisis is looming. Disease, starvation, and homelessness.
उन लोगों को हम बचाएं, उन लोगों को हम सहूलत दें ताकि वो बीमारी के मुंह से बाहर निकलें. ऐसा ना हो कि ये लोग यहीं पे मतलब किसी ऐसी डिजीज़ में क्रोनिक में चले जाएं.
कैसी हमारी कोई हुकूमत है? हमने तो वो लावारिस हैं हम. जैसे कोई आ भी नहीं रहा, क्या समझे उनको.
Pakistan first has to understand that it is facing an existential crisis which will impact our human, food and national security.
Pakistan's woes have a direct relationship to the warming climate. What is the real impact of this unprecedented flood? And why is Pakistan a warning for the rest of the world? It's been 3 months since Pakistan's worst flood in living memory. The waters haven't yet subsided. Parts of Sindh, one of the provinces worst affected, are still submerged. More than 12.5 million people have been rendered homeless, most reduced to living day to day on rations and other aid from the army. Damages from the floods will cost the country $40 billion according to the most recent estimates. That includes the cost of rebuilding infrastructure, some of which had been demolished by the military in what's called dewatering operations. This to allow floodwaters to be diverted downstream. Today, Muhammad Urs is going home for the first time since the floods.
और ये सारा हमारा घर है, इसमें रहा करते थे. छोटी सी फैमिली थी, उसमें ये एक कमरा था. उसके अलावा जो किचन था वो सामने इधर ही बाहर ही बना हुआ था. उधर ही जो खाना पकाना हर चीज़ें उधर ही हो रही थी. अभी ये हो गया कि वो किचन भी ख़त्म हो गया है बिल्कुल.
In Sindh, many homes were made of mud. Over 1 million of them collapsed when the rains came. Urs, his wife and 2 children found shelter in this refugee camp with other flood victims, now homeless.
कि मुश्किल से अपने बच्चों को थोड़ा सा सामान को निकाल के यहाँ पे पहुँचे हैं, तो ऐसी हालत हुई कि हमारे बच्चे चीखे कर रहे थे. सामान लेने में मुश्किलात हो रही थी. बहुत ऐसी बुरी हालत थी कि हम बता भी नहीं सकते, ऐसा हाल हो रहा था. उसमें बहुत से ना कोई ऐसी गाड़ी मिल रही थी उसी टाइम. वो सारे जो गांव के यहाँ पूरे गांव में अफरा तफरी का माहौल था. तो उसी में हमारे जो हालात थे उसी टाइम, जो पोजीशन थी बहुत ख़राब थी. उसी में जो मेरे बच्चे थे उनको भी बहुत तकलीफ़ हो रही थी. एक माहौल जैसे खौफ का माहौल था ना, वो हो गया था. उसी में मुश्किल से यहाँ पे पहुँचे हैं. और यहाँ पे रह रहे हैं। अभी 1 महीना हो गया यहीं पे है, यही हालात हैं हमारे सारे।
In September 2022, there were 500,000 people crowded into camps such as these across the country. Many like us have started to return home, or what's left of it. According to a study by the World Weather Attribution Group, Pakistan's recurrent episodes of severe flooding in recent times are likely a consequence of climate change. As temperatures rise, hot air holds more moisture, leading to heavier rains during the monsoon season. And this is amplified by the country's precarious geographical location. Pakistan is located just under the glaciers of the Himalayas, now melting at unprecedented rates. Satellite imaging has shown that the glaciers have shrunk by 4.6 gigatons, releasing enough water to fill almost 2 million Olympic-sized swimming pools.
Whatever system you adopt or what coordination mechanism you adopt in this country, it's beyond its capacity. Like these rains and flash floods and glacier burst. So it will need international expertise, international consultants, and countries who have experience in all these disaster management, so that they come up with some plans for Pakistan and mitigate this situation.
There are 1.7 million families just in Sindh alone, where homes would need to be rebuilt. In the meantime, they'll have to make do in tents. China and Turkey have donated more than 40,000 between them and set up 10 cities in several flood-affected provinces. Meanwhile, production cranks up locally.
इसकी पूरी एसेसरीज भी हैं शाह साहब, और इसके जितने भी वो हैं सारी चीज़ें भी, इसकी जो एसेसरीज होती हैं वो भी इसी के साथ कंप्लीट पैक बन के जाएगा।
Ijaz Ullah Khan from the NGO Al Khidmat Foundation commissions 1,000 tents to be made daily. Many displaced families continue to sleep in makeshift shelters exposed to the elements.
और इस वक्त बलूचिस्तान में और सिंध में बेशुमार लोग खुले आसमान तले मुश्किल में बैठे हैं। शदीद गर्मी है, हर जानिब पानी ही पानी है, लोगों को बहुत मुश्किलात हैं। इस वक्त बहुत शदीद ज़रूरत है कि जो मुतासरीन सैलाब हैं हम उनको शेल्टर फराहम करें, उनको बड़े पैमाने पर टेंट फराहम करें। और मुझे उम्मीद है कि मुझे सुनने वालों ने अब तक इस सैलाबी कैफियत में बेशुमार लोगों की इमदाद का एहतमाम किया होगा। अल खिदमत फाउंडेशन के साथ भी बहुत इमदाद का सिलसिला जारी रखा होगा। लेकिन मैं आपसे गुजारिश करता हूँ कि इस वक्त बहुत ज़्यादा की ज़रूरत है, और आपने जितना अब तक किया अल्लाह ताला आपको इसका अजर देगा। लेकिन इस वक्त बहुत बड़े तादाद में लोग खुले आसमान तले शेल्टर के लिए, फूड के लिए, मेडिसिन के लिए, पके पकाए खाने के लिए, कपड़ों के लिए।
Pakistan's government had announced it had run out of funds to spend on recovery, leaving millions at risk.
What we're seeing is unprecedented. These floods, fueled by climate change, are some of the biggest Pakistan has ever seen. 33 million people affected, 16 million of those are children, and the disruption to people's lives and livelihoods is difficult to measure. When we go out and we see these victims of the floods, they're displaced, they've lost their house, livestock, livelihoods, schools, health centers. 20,000 schools have been destroyed.
International organizations are trying to help. such as a $160 million emergency plan launched by the United Nations to deliver aid to Pakistan's most vulnerable. But as winter approaches and the consequences of the flood become evident, will this be enough?
There is a donor fatigue. So currently, resources are always an issue.
In the months of June to August in 2022, some parts of Pakistan saw rainfall 10 times heavier than usual. At its worst, 1/3 of the country was underwater. It was the South Asian country's worst flood in living memory, but not its first, and probably not its last. Since 2010, when the last massive flood occurred, heavier monsoon rains attributed to a warming climate have wreaked havoc on the country. And what happened in Pakistan could be a warning for the world, as the ripples of climate change reach countries everywhere.
We have to realize that there is no default setting to nature. Things will not go back to normal after, say, a summer has passed or a scorching summer like this one has passed. So here we have a problem of not just national but international climate governance and denialism about its actual ferocity and scale of what climate change can do to the human race, to populations in particularly vulnerable countries and situations.
In the center of the capital, Lahore, a group of volunteers monitor flood relief operations across the country. They work for the Al Khidmat Foundation, Pakistan's largest NGO with the most active presence on the field. The center was built mere weeks after the floods.
अच्छा, ये एक ओवरऑल सिचुएशन है पाकिस्तान मैप की, जो कि आज की तारीख में फ्लड की सिचुएशन को शो कर रही है कि हमारे कौन से एरियाज ऐसे हैं जो कि अभी भी फ्लडेड हैं.
The team monitors developments round the clock because conditions continue to change on the ground. Rescue and relief crews are dispatched here to affected areas where help is urgently needed.
तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह हमारे अफराद क्योंकि इस वक्त फील्ड में मौजूद हैं, तो एक फील्ड में मौजूद फ़र्द ज़्यादा बेहतर बता सकता है कि हमें यहाँ पे एक चीज़ चाहिए. अब हमने मुख्तलिफ़ जगहों के ऊपर अपने वेयर हाउसेस बनाए हुए हैं जो कि क्लोजेस्ट टू फ्लड एरियाज़ भी हैं. लोग कह रहे हैं कि आपके पास अगर कोई चीज़ खाने की फ़ौरी तौर पे तैयार है जो कि आप हमें दे सकते हैं, आप हमें वो चीज़ दें, हमें भूख लगी है, हमें फ़ौरी कुछ खाना है. तो ये सूरत हाल हमारी इस टाइम पे फील्ड में मौजूद है. अल्लाह ताला जो है वो हमारे जो अफराद हैं जो इससे मुतासिर हुए उनके लिए बहुत ज़्यादा आसानी वाला मामला फरमाए.
It's unfortunate that the relief activities are a little bit overstretched. We also thought that it will be over in 2 to 3 weeks, but now we are assessing that it will go beyond. For example, in the next 2 weeks, it may we can shift to the rehabilitation phase. The government has it was a little bit late in making all these coordination committees and coordination infrastructure, but now it is in place, and we are hopeful that after the visit of UN Secretary General, international community will also come forward.
I think if you imagine these communities where these families and these children used to live, coming back after weeks or months of being underwater, many times having houses, schools, health centers destroyed, the need is great.
As the water slowly subsides, the true cost of the flood becomes clearer. The Pakistan government has stated it needs at least $30 billion to tackle the crisis. Recognizing the scale of the humanitarian crisis, the UN has raised its aid appeal from $160 million to over $800 million. Countries like the UK, the US, Canada and others have already pledged tens of millions. The World Bank, the Asian Development Bank and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank have pledged around $3 billion in total. But money is just part of the issue. Getting aid to the people in need is a massive logistical exercise.
कल हमारे टोटल जो 13 ट्रक निकले हैं, जिसमें से 6 जो हैं वो सिंध में चले गए और जो 7 थे बाकी वो बलूचिस्तान में हमने भेजे हैं। ये अब आप इसमें देख सकते हैं, ये इन काइंड डोनेशन है हमारी। मुख्तलिफ जो हमारे डोनर्स हैं वो आते हैं, जिस तरह ये चावल पैक हैं, चने की दाल है, फिर ये माश की दाल है, मसूर की दाल है और ये चने हैं। इस तरह के मुख्तलिफ चीज़ें हैं और साथ ये खुश्क दूध, ठीक है, और ये बच्चों के लिए और वहाँ पे इस टाइम बहुत ज़रूरत है।
On a larger picture, there is a donor fatigue. So currently, resources are always an issue in such big disaster relief operations. But the thing is that we are getting the response. But the volume is so big, the disaster is so big that there need to be more resources aligned for the development activities.
There is one way in which the economic fallout from the disaster could soon be felt around the world. Pakistan is the 5th largest producer of cotton, exporting $3.4 billion worth in 2021. And in Pakistan's cotton belt, Rajanpur, farmers are reeling from the shock of lost livelihoods. Since losing his home, Kara Awan has been living in this tent city, 10 kilometers from his village. He's one of millions of displaced farmers just from the province of Sindh alone.
बस सर दिल में तो बहुत कुछ गुजर रहा था। क़यामत का दिन मंजर था जो हम उस दिन देखा था खुद ही। जो हमारा घर का सामान था, जो भी जमा पूंजी थी, जो भी कुछ था, हमारा माल था, कुछ भी हम नहीं निकाल सके। पानी जो है सर तकरीबन 1 घंटे के अंदर अंदर जो नहर थी, जो जहाँ से पानी आता है,
Today, Cora has been offered a ride home. It's his first glimpse of the devastation left by the flood.
सर दिल तो बहुत कर रहे कि क्या करें, कुछ ऐसे दिल कर रहे कि रोने लग जाएं, लेकिन अल्लाह को देख रहे हैं, बस वो ही मदद करेगा हमारी। सब कुछ ख़त्म, अभी मेरा घर नहीं है, सब कुछ ख़त्म है, मेरे पास अभी कोई उम्मीद ऐसी नहीं है सिवाय अल्लाह के।
अच्छा, ये जो कपास के जो पौधे जो लगे हुए थे ये सारे ख़त्म हो गए, उसके बारे में बताएं कि यहाँ
जी सर, जो यहाँ पे अभी कपास वगैरह थी वो आखिरी एंड पे थी चुनाई के लिए। जब पानी आया ना, तकरीबन बकरी से 2 दिन पहले है, ये सब कुछ ख़त्म है। लोगों ने यहाँ पे जो थे, हम खुद भी हमने उधार लेके अपने कुछ जानवर वगैरह बेच के, जो भी थे वो बेच के कपास पे लगाए थे। सब कुछ ख़त्म हो गया, कपास वगैरह सब कुछ, उम्मीदें सारे कुछ ख़त्म हो गया। यहाँ से आके हमने नए से सिरे से जो ज़िंदगी वो शुरू करनी है। जो हमने कर्ज़े उठाए थे कपास पे लगाए, वो भी आ रहे हैं हमारे पास, भाई हमारे को कर्जा दे, लेकिन हमारे पास तो कुछ नहीं है।
Especially in the south of Punjab and in Sindh province, the official figures are it is going to take at least 6 months to evaporate or move out. So in that particular case, what is going to happen to cotton crop, one can just wonder. And it is going to have impacts on the global textile industry as well. So the next crisis, because of climate change, because of these floods, is going to be on the cotton crisis.
And the ruin isn't restricted to cotton. Floods have destroyed at least 4 million acres of croplands nationwide. October is the planting season for wheat in Pakistan. But with fields underwater, there will be no sowing and no harvest next year. At a time when a global wheat shortage persists due to the war in Ukraine.
These floods have devastated Pakistan's economy. We are trying to assess the real impact in terms of GDP. Right now, the initial estimate is from 14 to 16% of GDP, which is extremely huge for a country like Pakistan. Because you see, if we have exports of $30 billion, $27 billion, we have incurred a loss of $30 billion as of today. And it is in multiple economic sectors. It is infrastructure, it is agriculture, it is energy and water resources, and the whole infrastructure of the country is impacted. The impact on economy is going to be extremely huge in terms of food security and water security and energy security.
Pakistan is a victim of a climate crisis caused by carbon emissions warming the planet. Almost half of the emissions since the start of the Industrial Revolution were released by developed nations in just the last 30 years. In contrast, Pakistan contributes barely 1% of all emissions worldwide per year.
Pakistan is bizarrely and counterintuitively not responsible for much of global warming. We are a small emitter compared to the rest, even less than 98% of global emissions. So there's a realization that, well, you know, we are at the receiving end. When will this go back to normal? And how fast can we change it?
Climate justice was a sore point during the recent climate conference COP27, where poor countries demanded that rich countries pay for losses they suffered from climate change.
You know, somebody has to pay up for it, and the polluter pays principle is what dictates the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is one of the first foundational principles on which the UNFCCC negotiation is formulated. And we very well know who the polluters are over here. Pakistan is not a polluter on climate change, yet it is one of the most affected countries. You know, this is climate injustice, and we are at the epicenter of this climate injustice.
There was a small victory for countries like Pakistan at COP27. The US and the EU agreed to set up a fund to reimburse poorer countries for climate losses.
Developed countries also have to deal with the climate change. Developed countries also have to ensure energy security, food security, and to ensure the livelihood of the people. So I think we should understand this. You know why? Because this is very much important for us to work with developed countries, encouraging them to contribute and bring them to understand it's not only the developing countries' problem. Okay? No, I think we are all on the same boat.
But apart from the economic cost, the human toll of Pakistan's flood is just starting to be seen.
हमें पता चला कि यहाँ पे डिजीज़ बहुत हो गई है, जैसे डायरिया हो गई है, मलेरिया डिजीज़ हो गई है, कॉलरा हो गई है, और इसके अलावा बच्चों में जो है वो ग़िज़ाई जो है वो किल्लत हो गई है, ग़िज़ा की वो ग़िज़ा नहीं ले रहे, वो सीवियर उनकी कंडीशंस हो गई हैं, मेल नोरिश्ड हो गए हैं वो.
Jamshoro, gateway to the Indus Valley, is in the heart of Sindh. It's the site of this tent city one of more than 10 in the province. There are 300 tents here, housing over 500 residents displaced by the floods.
यहीं से सैलाब आया था, यहाँ पे पानी आया था, तो यहाँ बहुत सारी परेशानी थी हमको, बच्चों की भी बहुत परेशानी थी, जैसे बाथरूम की या नहाने की सब परेशानी थी हमारे पास। अभी भी परेशानी है, अभी भी हमारे बच्चे हम इसी धूप में बैठे हुए हैं, हमारे पास कोई यहाँ नहीं आई है, कोई इंतजाम यहाँ कोई हमारे पास पीने के पानी की भी बहुत परेशानी है हमारे पास, बहुत सारी हैं यहाँ मसाले।
The torrential monsoon rains that caused Pakistan's worst flood have abated. But the World Health Organization warns of a second disaster. As flood waters recede, stagnant waters have led to a breakout of diseases such as cholera, typhoid, dengue, and malaria, all potentially deadly. Dengue and malaria are spread by mosquitoes, while cholera and typhoid result from infections from drinking contaminated water. Displaced families have been forced to drink and cook with disease-ridden water.
बच्चों के यहाँ गंदा पानी उसमें आते जाते हैं, उसकी बीमारी है, ये मले की हो जाती है, खारिश हो जाती है, ऐसी भी बीमारी है, और इसमें जो पेट का दर्द होता है वो ज़्यादा बीमारी हो गई है, उसकी भी परेशानी बहुत है यहाँ पर। हमको यही परेशानी, हमसे सब कुछ हमको चाहिए यहाँ, वीणा जब तो है ना।
Right now, people do not have drinking water in these flooded areas, and it is becoming a crisis. There are different initiatives where people are trying to use that dirty, murky water, and it is causing disease, skin disease and scabies and all that. So it's going to be a huge problem, and people are struggling with this.
I will just quote our president last message yesterday. He called me and say that we cannot see their faces. Like they are mosquitoes and everything. So you say there are sunburns as well, and the water is lying there for the last many days. So situation is quite you can say that it needs immediate medical relief, and people need to be educated that how to survive in this situation. So it's quite bad now.
The women face another set of problems. Menstruation is a taboo topic in Pakistan. It's hardly spoken about. Since the floods, menstrual pads have been in short supply, and relief agencies reach only some areas. Meanwhile, many women have been forced to improvise, using pieces of clothing or tree leaves to manage their periods.
ख़वातीन को बहुत सी ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो वो कह भी नहीं सक पा रही हैं, और वो वहाँ तक उनको एड नहीं मिल रही है, जिसमें ना सिर्फ खाने पीने की चीज़ें बल्कि बेसिक हाइजीन की चीज़ें भी उन तक नहीं पहुँची, जिनकी वजह से वो बीमारियों का शिकार हो सकती हैं, और भी बहुत सी चीज़ें वहाँ पे ख़वातीन जो हैं वो मतलब उनको नहीं मिल रही। नेक्स्ट इसमें आप ये सैनिटरी नैपकिन एंड ये कप्स में जिसमें मॉस्पेल एंड ऑल दीज थिंग्स हैं वो चीज़ें इनमें ऐड करें। हाइजीन किट्स जो हम यहाँ तैयार कर रहे हैं उसमें हाइजीन की जो बेसिक बुनियादी चीज़ें हैं वो सब मौजूद हैं, जिस तरह उनकी सोप्स हो गए या सैनिटरी नैपकिन्स हो गए, उसके अलावा नेल कटर्स, कॉम्स, टूथ ब्रशेस, टूथपेस्ट, मेडिसन्स, बेसिक मेडिसन्स जो हैं, उसके अलावा जो उनकी बेसिक चीज़ें जो उनको इस वक्त बुरी तरह ज़रूरत है और लोग उस चीज़ पर ध्यान नहीं दे रहे कि उनको ये चीज़ों की भी ज़रूरत है।
Women are disproportionately affected by climate-related disaster. This is especially so in countries like Pakistan, where they make up the bottom of the economic ladder, putting them at risk from disease and deprivation. Women are also more vulnerable to gender violence when they're displaced.
जैसे इस तरह के डिज़ास्टर्स में सैलाब में ख़वातीन बहुत बुरी तरह मुतासिर होती हैं, क्योंकि ख़वातीन हमारे माशरे का एक कमज़ोर तबका समझा जाता है, जिनको उस हद तक रसाई नहीं है चीज़ों तक, बुनियादी चीज़ों तक, जो कि एक मर्द को होगी।
We're seeing the impact on women and children. We're seeing lots of diseases, malaria, diarrhea are extremely prevalent. Malnutrition is very high, and all of these come together to make very vulnerable and very life-threatening situations for the children. I just want to add the mothers as well.
By October, more than 500,000 cases of malaria were reported in Pakistan. While those sheltering near cities had access to hospitals, medical aid to remote communities has been slower to arrive.
जो हमारे पास रिक्वेस्ट आई है तो वहाँ पे मलेरिया भी है, वहाँ पे डायरिया भी हो गई है और वहाँ पे बहुत सारे बच्चे जो है वो ग़िज़ाई भूख का शिकार हैं, ग़िज़ाई किल्लत का शिकार हैं.
Feroz Ahmad leads a team of government doctors tasked with attending to far-flung communities, one town at a time.
डियर टीम, आज का जो हमारा प्लान है वो तलका जोही का है और तलका जोही में 30 जादो शहीद यूसी है. आज हम वहाँ पे जाएंगे और वहाँ पे विलेज मोहम्मद खान नायच जो है वहाँ पे हमारे आज हम कैंप करेंगे. वहाँ वो जो गांव है मोहम्मद खान नायच वो अंडर वाटर है. वहाँ पे हम थ्रू बोट्स के ज़रिए जाएंगे और वहाँ पे हमारी एक्सेस ज़मीन सतह की नहीं है तो हम बोट यूज़ करेंगे. तो आज हम वहाँ पे जाएंगे और वहाँ पे चल के हम जो है मेडिकल की सर्विसेज भी देंगे, उसके साथ हम न्यूट्रिशनल स्क्रीनिंग भी करेंगे. आप देख रहे हैं कि सारे दरख्त अंडर वाटर हैं और ये तकरीबन जो पानी की लेवल है वो 10 से 12 फुट है पानी है यहाँ पे और ये लोग अभी पानी में फंसे हुए हैं लोग. तो इनके लिए हमने एक मेडिकल कैंप रखा है. हमें पता चला कि यहाँ पे डिजीज़ बहुत हो गई है, जैसे डायरिया हो गई है, मलेरिया डिजीज़ हो गई है, कॉलरा हो गई है और इसके अलावा बच्चों में जो है वो ग़िज़ाई जो है वो किल्लत हो गई है, ग़िज़ा की वो ग़िज़ा नहीं ले रहे, वो सीवियर उनकी कंडीशंस हो गई है, मेल नोरिश्ड हो गए हैं, वो उन्हें बहुत ग़िज़ाई किल्लत हो गई है.
It's taken the team an hour to arrive. It's a small village, home to just 4 families.
अस्सलामुअलैकुम डॉक्टर साहब. टीम करे भाई स्क्रीनिंग करे बिल्कुल स्क्रीनिंग आप टेस्ट करेगी
ये एक स्किन का पेशेंट है. ये इसको देखें, ये इसकी हालत है अभी, तो इसको हमने ट्रीटमेंट दिया है अभी. और उसके अलावा जो हम मलेरिया वो भी ज़्यादा आ रहा है. पेशेंट ऐसे आ रहा है जैसे वो बस अभी उसका सांस निकलने वाला है. ऐसी शिवरिंग होती है, टेम्परेचर होता है. उसके बाद डायरिया जो है वो सीवियर पेशेंट आता है, उसकी आंखें जो है अंदर डूब जाती है, चमड़ी बिल्कुल उसकी मनस ये जो पंच करते हैं हम देखते हैं कि वो बहुत पंच हो जाती है और नीचे भी देर से जाती है.
The team also encounters patients with underlying conditions now left untreated after being cut off from medical facilities.
बीमारी दा दस्यानी सोराख दा मन वो नसा नवाब शाह तई दादू तई चाग से पर असा गरीबत थी पे पीछे असा बस कित से असा इंदा गरीबत हिसाब ना इलाज घणा चरदा करवा से पर इको मन किथो छुटकारा दा कोन थिया. मन ये यकी मन ये बीमारी बेचारा कटेंदा आंदा हुणे बेचारा बह गया एकड़ी खट ते बेचारा हलदा घटदा कोनी पिया बेचारा. बाकी इंदा असा इलाज दा घणा करवाए से वसे ताहिर जो गरीबत आहिर बस असर हाल इो गरीबाना क्या करवो दा.
The team helps where they can, but they're fighting a losing battle. Food is in desperately short supply in rural communities like these. More than 3.4 million children in Pakistan are facing chronic hunger now, with an estimated 760,000 children in flood-hit areas risking severe malnutrition. And things could get even worse in December, when winter comes. With such daunting prospects facing the country, can Pakistan recover from the floods? The floods of 2022 are not the first extreme weather event Pakistan has had to confront. In the months before the monsoon, Pakistan was gripped by a brutal heat wave. Heat waves and periods of extreme rainfall are getting more frequent in this, the 8th most vulnerable country to climate change.
Climate change has great crashed into Pakistan. It has really wreaked havoc all over the country. We have seen it with heat waves this year. We had the worst heat waves in Pakistan. And then, the flooding, the glacial melt, forest fires, everything happened in the last 5 months in Pakistan. And we are feeling the pinch of climate change like nothing else over here right now. These countries and these polluters who think that they can get away with it, I have a warning for them. Climate change is not going to spare anybody. So, you just wait for your turn. It is time to take the foot off the fossil fuel accelerator to make sure, even if you take the full foot off it right now, even then climate change will be here for some time, but at least it will start on a reversal trend and not keep on accelerating because this is a phenomena which has got not just sort of linear growth, but it has got, tipping points after which you get exponential events occurring. And we have reached the tipping point in Pakistan. And we have seen what the exponential climate change looks like.
With extreme weather events likely to occur more frequently, it is now a matter of adapting to these disasters. And innovators from the private sector are finding ways to solve these problems, such as access to clean water. One of them, a water solutions outfit whose name, translated to English, is Droplets from the Sun.
Boonde Shams as an organization was founded in 2014 by my younger brother Hamza Farokh. So he had an idea that he needed to do something about the water situation, especially in his own country. हमारे अपने मुल्क के अंदर जो पाकिस्तान है उसमें उसने सोचा और इस सोच को रख के उसने आगे काम किया हम लोगों ने.
Only 36% of Pakistanis have access to safe drinking water, and that was before the floods. So the company came up with a design for a water treatment plant the size of a shipping container.
This is the Oasis box, the solar water box, जो हम different जगह पर deploy कर रहे हैं. तो जैसे कि आप इसको इस पोजीशन में देख सकते हैं, सबसे पहली बात तो ये है कि हम जब बॉक्स को किसी भी जगह पर डिप्लॉय करके आते हैं तो उस वक्त वो फाइनली इस स्टेट के ऊपर होता है.
It treats flood water by a filtration process that incorporates membranes and pumps powered by the sun.
जला के वो पानी को उबाला जाता है तो फिल्टर होता है, which is a carbon positive process. ये उसी प्रोसेस को सोलर एनर्जी को यूटिलाइज करके कर रही है, which is a carbon negative process. तो इससे आप ये देखें कि कार्बन एमिशंस में बहुत ज़्यादा फ़र्क आता है और हम बिल्कुल क्लाइमेट चेंज की तरफ जो है वो हमारी ज़हनियत है.
The Oasis box was launched 8 years ago. It's since been deployed in countries like Pakistan, Yemen, South Sudan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. Within 72 hours of the flood, 3 boxes were deployed in the province of Sindh. Dozens more have since been sent to other flood-affected communities across the country.
पीने के लिए करवाया, यानी कि ये देखें आप बहुत बड़ी बात है जिस चीज़ ने उन लोगों के कैफियत समझें जो इस कैलेमिटी में से गुजर रहे हैं इस वक्त. पानी उनके लिए कितनी बड़ी ट्रॉमाटाइजिंग चीज़ होगी. हमने उस पानी को ही जो उनके लिए इतना उसका खौफ का सबब था, उसी पानी को हमने साफ़ करके उनके पीने के एज अ ब्लेसिंग उनको प्रोवाइड किया है.
Look at the young population, which is 63% of Pakistan's population, and look at the green entrepreneurship which we were able to create during COVID, especially amongst rural women and rural young people. They were developing their own nurseries, they were going into plantation, going into waste management, going into other green issues. So there is a whole horizon of green entrepreneurship. So what we need to do is upscale those green entrepreneurship skills, train our people, young people who are tell them they should not wait for a job. They've got a job of their own to do, and which can earn them money and a very green future. I think we have got a very bright future, and we must take this steps forward.
It's been a difficult year for Pakistan, even by Pakistani standards. Pakistan's economy was in bad shape before the floods, with surging inflation and dwindling foreign reserves, reducing the country to an aid-dependent economy. The country was also beset with major political challenges. The floods could be the proverbial straw breaking the camel's back. Questions loom on whether Pakistan could have invested in better preparedness or on adaptation measures, while experts within the country argue about the enormity of the challenge.
Pakistan is one of the pioneering countries having legislation on climate change unanimously approved by the Parliament. We have a national level climate change policy. Ministries are administrative units. What we need to do is create that expertise. And the second important thing is having that human resource which knows what is to be done. Climate adaptation is a very important subject. We need to, and we have got very good people, individuals who we can use for this work, who can work in this authority, creating an adaptation scenario.
This is something that we don't know where it's going to end, and we don't know what the multiplication factor in this phenomena is, and from what we have seen, it is just something beyond human and the country's capacity to handle.
Pakistan isn't the only country to have been impacted by climate change. In Australia, the US, and all across Southeast Asia, floods devastated communities this year. And climate scientists warn that such extreme weather events would only get worse.
See, if we look back 10 years ago, 15 or even 20 years ago, and there will be more skeptics. And what if? We don't have to look for what ifs. It's here. It happened. And no part of the country would escape from that. So I don't think we need to discuss whether the climate change consequences will hit those areas or that areas, or whether some countries are safe. I don't know. I don't. It's a global issue.
Estimates on the amount of investments needed to reach net zero emissions are staggering. More than $9 trillion are needed globally every year till the 2050 deadline, making it the biggest capital relocation exercise in history. But perhaps the crisis in Pakistan shows the greater cost of inaction.
So Pakistan's disaster told us climate change is right here, right now. So we should lose no time to do everything possible to control climate change. Now, money is always the issue, but I will say money may not always be the issue. The issue is how you prioritize, how you allocate the resources for the most important, most urgent things.
देखिए, इसमें ये बहुत अच्छी बात है, हम लोग ये पाकिस्तान का पानी का मसला हल करने के जो मिशन के ऊपर निकले हुए हैं, वो हम अकेले बिल्कुल भी नहीं कर सकते. We definitely need help, and most of all the government of Pakistan needs to do something about it. इन लोगों ने गवर्नमेंट कुछ अरसे बाद इनिशिएटिव्स लेके आती है, लेकिन अभी तक कोई भी इनिशिएटिव नहीं है जो कि सस्टेनेबल हो. For us, the only motivation is to provide clean water to the masses. इसके अलावा हमारी और कोई मोटिवेशन नहीं है. तो हम तो खुद चाहेंगे कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा कुछ ऐसे मामलात हो सके कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को पानी जो है वो मिल सके.
While Pakistanis begin to pick up the pieces, the economic and human costs of the catastrophe will only be fully revealed when the flood waters recede. This episode has served as a stark reminder for the global community to work together to put the brakes on the warming of our planet. This, in the hopes that no community anywhere would have to confront disasters like these again.